Welcome again to this four-part series on my lectures. In the first three lectures, we talked about social development and media, media influence on society and the function of media, and the media ethics and the digital divide and the newsroom when it comes to media in general and journalism. On this lecture, I want to switch the tempo up a little bit. I'm going to focus more on something that is personal to me, closer to Namibia, so I can introduce you or give you an insight on what Namibia is all about. And the cases of the theme, this theme of this lecture will be about culture, thought, and development, the breaks and visions, particularly focusing on indigenous people, guardians of the earth, the case of Himba in Namibia. And this presentation is a paper that I'm writing with my colleague Dr. Philip Santos from the Namibia University of Science and Technology, and once we're done with this paper, we'll share it with your colleagues here in Poland, or particularly from this university, and hopefully they'll present or they'll publish in their local book. Before I get to the main topic itself, I want to give you a brief background on Namibia's history. A few people today know the existence of Herero and Nama tribes of Namibia, their history and their destiny, and yet it is to these small tribes who lived in the German colony of Southwest Africa, the current Namibia, that the Herero Nama first fell to suffer the first genocide of the 20th century, 11 years before the Armenians in 1915. And then to make the first experience of forced labor in concentration camps. The Herero and Nama genocide was a campaign of collective punishment that the German Empire undertook against over Herero, the Nama, and the San people of Namibia. It is considered the first genocide of the 20th century. It took place between 1904 and 1908. It is an extermination program which is part of the process of conquest of a territory by the German colonial troops between 1884 and 1911. It resulted in the death of 80% of the Herero and Nama natives and their families, about 65,000 Hereros and nearly 20,000 Namas, who were merely fighting for their right to the land. The facts were recorded for the first time in a report commissioned in 1917 for a political purpose by the British government to Judge Thomas O'Reilly, known as the Blue Book. Today, the Herero seek compensation from federal Germany. To get back to my point, the fate of the planet is, in this age of super-industrialization, capital flight, deepening inequalities and global warming, extreme weather conditions, accelerated deforestation, and voracious demand for rare and precious minerals may lie in the hands of indigenous people across the world. A common trend with all this of them is an intimate, interdependent and respectful relationship with the natural environment. The physical, social and spiritual cosmos is closely intertwined with the flora and fauna within the confines of their habitats. These groups of people have always held a different understanding of development and have steadily stood up to any attempts to discontinue them from their natural habitats in the name of modernist development. I shall come back to this point later. For now, let me briefly explore thought on the very end of development. So much has been said about the intersection between development and culture. The debates around these issues are manifested in the contradiction between the goals of modernization and local traditional cultural sensibilities in developing countries. From a modernization standpoint, development countries are seen as in need of external intervention from developed countries and development institutions or agencies in these countries. The modernization school is also known for its criticism of local traditional culture practices as the major pullback factor against development. In a nutshell, the modernization theory of development excelled the Western model of economic development, institutional framework of democratic aid governance, legal system forms of science and knowledge making, and associates underdeveloping the non-Western values, traditional and cultural system, among other things. Its point of departure is that the development economies have the opportunity to leapfrog development stages followed by industrial countries using contemporary technologies and knowledge allowing for such to happen. Within this framework, development is seen in terms of how developing countries can best follow the example of developed countries en route to their industrialization and economic development. This view receives a lot of criticism from dependency theorists. Dependency theorists do not use underdevelopment as a matter of incompatibility between traditional culture, religious and knowledge system of development countries and the process of development. Rather, they see structure factors traceable to the slave trade and colonialism as fundamental to creating a symmetrical relationship between countries of the North and countries of the South. They argue that these relationships are characteristic by the dependency of economies in the South on those in the North, and that the development of the former can generally emerge following the release of such relations to the advantage of the South. However, dependency theorists do not depart from the idea of development celebrated in the modernization pattern. The alternative approach to development is the one that significantly shifts from the modernization paradigm towards embracing sustainable forms of development that emphasizes a people's quality of life in relation to the available natural resources. However, it does not adequately address the disjuncture between the growing world population and limited or finding natural resources is significantly outside the framework of the modernization paradigm. This disjuncture is addressed by debates on the Anthropocene. There are a number of debates around the notion of Anthropocene. In broad terms, the debates can divide into two main categories. On the other hand, are those views that treat the Anthropocene as a rupture that breaks the current era in the history of the Earth system from a previous geological process and matrix known as the Holocene. This view does not see the rupture as contingent on human activities, but as part of the natural flow of things in the Earth, metamorphosis over time. On the other hand, are these views that take the Anthropocene as changes to the Earth system born of human activities on the environment. From this standpoint, it is argued that human activity has been significant enough to alter the geological process of the Earth system with significant consequences, especially on the environment. Such activities include industrial operations, deforestation for purposes of massive mechanized agriculture projects in the Amazon, logging activities in the Congo and Amazon, the plastic problem in our oceans and the emissions that lead to warming of the atmosphere and the melting of our glacier, among other things. The impacts of these activities are there for everyone to see. They manifest in the form of extreme weather conditions in both developing and developed countries. In some places, there is too much rain, in others too little. In some, it gets too hot, in others too cold. Both these binaries are manifested in the most unfortunate locations. Despite this development, there is still very little political will to address the impact of our activities on the environment. To what then shall we turn for radical solutions? I argue that the steadfast commitment of indigenous people to the preservation of their habitats, their relationship with the natural environment, and their resistance to the destructive encroachment of state and commercial interests into their living spaces is a source of hope for the planet. From the forest of the Amazon to the Papua New Guinea and from the old plains of Canada to the hot arid plains of the Kunene region in Namibia, indigenous people have stood against force to seek the destruction of their habitats in the name of development. These people are at the frontier of the struggle against the impact of development activities on the environment. In Namibia, both colonial and post-colonial authorities have been considering constructing a large dam near the Epupa Falls for the generation of electric power. The Epupa Falls are along the Kunene region up north in Namibia, which borders Namibia and Angola. Okay. The dam project was seen as something that would relieve Namibia's independence or South Africa for electricity, improve road access, social services, create employment, boost trade and tourism, introduce new possibilities for agriculture and livestock, keeping as well as other aspects of human substances, among other things. This thinking is very much in line with the modernization ideas about development. But the dam project would have also had a huge impact on the local community of the Himba, commonly referred as the Himba people. The Himba are estimated to be between 20,000 to 50,000 in a country of about 2.6 million people. They have not significantly changed their way of living over centuries. Their way of life is mainly pastoral, but they also keep livestock and do a bit of gardening. During dry seasons or droughts, they move closer to the Kunene River forest, where they rely on palm and other trees for food for themselves and their livestock. Initially, the Himba did not object to the idea of having a dam until the land of its sizes. If the project were to go ahead, it would have disrupted the semi-nomadic life of the Himba people, their traditional practices, and the dam would have also flooded their homes, ancestral land, as well as their ancestral graves. Furthermore, the project would have permanently disrupted the desert ecosystem, probably eliminated unique species of the fish to the area, and flooded the spectacular Epupa Falls. As we speak, nothing has changed in terms of their position regarding the dam project. So what lessons can be discerned from this case of the Himba and the Epupa Dam? First, it can be argued that the ecosystem of the area has remained balanced and protected largely due to the intervention of the Himba people. Second, the success of Namibia's Himba people in resisting the pressure to build a dam whose benefits to a community that is unwilling to change its lifestyle were more negative than positive, can inspire similar responses from other indigenous people faced with the same pressure in other critical parts of the world, like the Amazon forest or the Congo forest, etc. It is very important, given the environmental challenges that I referred to earlier, the cumulative effect of environmental protection by indigenous people across the world may just be a significant part of the solution to the challenges that confront us today in the age of supercharged neoliberalism. This is the end of my paper. I will be sharing this paper with you and through your faculty, or and also will be writing much more larger piece on this paper with my colleagues, Dr. Santos, who will hopefully be able to share this paper with you once it's done. Thank you.